I would say even if you're a few years out from wanting to buy a house, get started now, because like all those programs and all those options you talked about, you don't know until someone actually explains it to you.
Hey everyone, it's Doug with Real Simple Housing. I'm here today with Tanner and Sydney at their new home. Today we're going to talk about the whole process, everything you guys went through, and I have to throw props out to the Rockies. I wore the Rockies shirt today because I was at your first date, which was actually at the Colorado Rockies, which is like so fun. So I've known them for years, and so it was been a process going through everything here, and I'm super proud of what happened, and I want to share the story with you because I know that their issues and feelings are the same ones that you have, and so we want to try and get over that and let you know what you're in for. So, one of the things that we talk about all the time with our viewers is 5 things. So tell us the 5 things in buying the house that you thought were going to be problems or not, and kind of share with everyone.
I would say like getting all your documentation together. It's way easier than you think it's going to be. Your lender, your realtor, they're going to give you kind of a playbook, and you just got to go onto your Works portal and pull all the information you have and send it over to them, and you're done. So I'd say that's the main thing. You think you have all this information that you have to get, but you have it. So it's not that hard. And, as long as you don't have anything to hide, you're good to go.
And getting all that stuff together first before, so then it's easy. You have all your stuff together and you're ready to go.
Right. And to remind everyone, we needed 2 months pay stubs, or 2 pay stubs, sorry. 2 months bank statements, right? Tax returns, 2 years tax returns. We keep working on these 2 years tax returns, and 2 years W-2s, right? Any other documentation that you really had to pull together that didn't expect?
Not really.
No, the only other thing is if you have money coming from somewhere, you have to
like gift money.
Money. You have to have documentation for that for your down payment. But other than that,
And you bring up down payment. How easy or hard was that?
Not hard, not at all. No, I think you found the amount that you were comfortable doing, and you worked with that, and then kind of go from there. So it's as little as you want to do or as much as you want to do. Just make the plan and go for it.
Yeah. And how did you figure out how much you needed for a down payment?
Working with Graham, but it was more so, or our lender. He said, "How much do you want to put down?"
Use an experienced lender.
And it was more so. He asked us how much we wanted to put down, and we said that, and he said, "Okay, we can work with that." And I think honestly, we could have given him any amount, and he would have said we could work with it. So it was kind of on us. We kind of had a number that we wanted to do, and that was more so just kind of the conversation Sid and I had of, we want to have an emergency fund, but we also, let's make our payment as low as we can in our current situation.
Right. And I remember in the transaction, we got the sellers to contribute money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we used that money to buy your interest rate down. So I know that oftentimes we have buyers that are talking about the interest rate being too high. I don't want to buy because the interest rate was too high.
Yeah.
And we were able to overcome that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Well, and I think for us too, at first we were like, we don't have enough money saved up to even consider buying a house. And so I think that kind of held us back for a while. And then when we finally met with the lender and they were like, no, what you have is good, or we can work with whatever you do have, then we're like, okay, we could have done this a lot sooner maybe. So.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that we try and share, right?
Yeah.
And everybody thinks they know what they need to buy a house, but what you really need to do is visit with a good lender. One with experience in first-time buyers and entry-level buying, familiar with down payment assistance programs, because certainly I know that there were some conversations about whether you go with the down payment assistance program, the money you have saved, do I need to actually bring more in? Do I need gift money? Where are we going, right? And so, that kind of layering of financing of how do we, it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle, right? And we're pulling all the different pieces. So,
Yeah, and I would say even if you're a few years out from wanting to buy a house, get started now, because all those programs and all those options you talked about, don't know until someone actually explains it to you.
That's the message, and what we're trying to share with you is that it's not as difficult as what you think it is.
Yeah.
So make sure
Yeah.
to talk to an experienced lender. Graham Hubner over at Colorado Lending Group, shameless plug for him, but was a huge help for you.
Yeah.
Huge.
And we were able to craft that path. And then you picked the path that was best for you, which
Yep.
was incredible. And I think that for sure is the first step, you know,
Definitely.
and almost in a way before you even start saving for a down payment.
Yeah.
Because you don't even know how much to save for.
Yeah. It seems like a bogey that just keeps changing, and you're like, what am I going for?
Yeah.
But until we talked to you and talked to Graham, we were like, oh, this is so overwhelming. And then after that, immediately we were like, oh, we're going to do this, and we're probably going to do it way quicker than we thought because it's not hard and it's not that bad. So like, let's go for it, kind of thing. But before you talk to anyone, you're like,
Where do I start?
where do I start? What do I do? You know, can we do this?
Well, and you're not alone. Like I get that often. You viewers bring it in all the time. Where do I start? How do I get started? Right? That is just that first step seems to be the hardest step, right?
Yeah.
And then once we get that first step out of the way, and that mentally you as people decide that, you know what, I really want to own a house. I'm tired of being a tenant. I know, but you can share, but you've got way more space here in your new house
Yep.
Yeah.
than you did in your apartment.
Our one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, with the dog,
With the
right?
dog.
Like it was like everybody was overflowing and stepping on each other.
Yeah.
Now the dog's got a big backyard to run in. You have a place to barbecue with friends and family.
Yep.
You've got your own space. You want to change the color of the wall? Go for it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Update the countertops like you did, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's fun,
Yeah.
right? And then the money that you put into the house, that's building equity
Exactly. Yeah.
where we can now jump over and refinance out the mortgage insurance. So in a couple of years, we'll refinance out mortgage insurance, save you a bunch of money, and you're off to the races, right? Now
Yep.
we share with you as viewers all the time, creating that generational wealth, right? Like, so now you're building wealth, your families before you have done the same,
Yeah.
and then you're doing it as well. And I mean, as a family friend, I'm super proud and glad that I was able to be part of the process. You know,
Yeah.
It's-
Well, we couldn't have done it without you.
Nope.
so-
yeah. Thank you. That's kind. So financing and being a little bit easy, documentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what other points do you think would be something that you'd want to share with others that you thought were going to be problematic and then they weren't? I know that we talked about the roof. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So share a little bit about the experience with the roof and what we're going through in getting that fixed up.
Yeah, so we, obviously had our inspection and the roof came back that it needs to be replaced. So anytime you look at a quote for a roof, you're like, wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a buyer, you kind of have the power because you're like, I don't want to buy that if it's in that condition.
Right.
So either you guys have to fix it, or Sid and I and Doug are going to go find, something else. And if someone's motivated to sell their house, they're going to work with you. So we were actually able to get the seller to pay for them to replace the roof. So at signing, we got a check, and we were able to actually, like you were kind of mentioning earlier, we got to go to the roofer that we liked that's working with us. So I think it was a win-win for us, but also, they were able to sell their house and move to wherever they were going to.
Right. And for those of you out there, the backstory on it was that the roof had hail damage. So we brought in our roofer, Sean Point, Stonescape Steel Roofing, and he was able to identify issues with the roof. He worked with the insurance adjuster with the sellers of the home. They were able to get the claim submitted and approved. And then the money from that insurance claim was the money that was transferred over to Sean to finish the roof for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and did you get to pick the colors of the roof?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yep, got to
you
pick
got
the
to
grade,
kind
the
of
shade.
personalize it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now what we ended up doing, and this is something that we do often, is that we made sure that you had a good building envelope, right? So it was in good shape so that when you started improving the inside, that we knew that the outside was covered.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, And that's just making sure that's something that you're going to want to do as a entry-level first-time buyer, something that you really want to make sure and take into account that the outside is in good shape.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because there's no point fixing the inside up if the outside's falling down. So build your equity on a good building envelope. So that's certainly a great tip there for everyone kind of coming in.
And I would say go into your inspection. Don't make an excuse. The inspector's going to offer you the opportunity to walk the house with them. They're going to explain everything they saw. I would say go in with, not rose-colored glasses. Go in, be realistic, ask a million questions. And I think for my experience, there was, other than the roof, there wasn't a lot wrong, which was great.
Right.
But I think if there was, the inspector was going to give his honest opinion to us. So I think don't miss on that opportunity. Don't think, the inspector's going to email me the report. Like, go and talk to them, and then when you get their report, you're like, oh yeah, I remember him talking about that. I remember him talking about that. And it makes you feel a lot better that, like, especially if you're buying an older home like we did.
Right.
Makes you feel better.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? Which is understand the house before you close on it.
Yeah.
And make sure that the repairs and, if you will, the risk is something you're willing to accept, right?
Yep.
Like the amount of repairs. And we all have friends, like you mentioned, like the neighbors and HVAC contractor, and you have a brother-in-law, right? Like everyone seems to know family, friends, or acquaintances that would be someone that could help you with the house, right?
Yep.
So, you're willing to accept HVAC if you already have somebody that can help you with that, or flooring or painting or whatever the case is. So
Absolutely.
certainly, like, weighing that is very important. And then I have to say, and you brought up, which is exactly the approach we took, which was, if we can't get those repairs done, and this is really important, if we cannot get the seller to make those repairs, don't feel obligated to close on that house. Don't be afraid. You'll be under your inspection contingency. You can get your earnest money back, but just step away from the transaction.
Yeah.
Go find the house that works right for you.
Yep,
You know?
exactly.
And that's, you're spending a lot of your hard-earned money.
Yeah.
You don't have to just take
Settle,
it.
yeah.
You're exactly. Don't settle on it.
Yeah.
Great point. Talk about the home warranty that you
So definitely, I think, definitely something you absolutely want to get. We already have had an issue with the dishwasher on those days where it was, -10 out. We called the home warranty company, and, let them know that the dishwasher, there was issue was leaking. Can we get someone out? I would say it was honestly like 15 seconds. They're like, okay, this company in Aurora is what's assigned. They'll call you. I think it was like 3 hours later, I had an appointment set. For 2 days later, they came by, they identified the problem, and they're actually coming out later today to fix it for us. So it was just perfect situation where I didn't have to work very hard, and I'm going to get my dishwasher replaced or fixed.
Well, and that's something that's really important to us, and that we always especially put on first-time buyers, which is the home warranty, because the home warranty is so invaluable from the standpoint that there's you put a lot of your money up front into the down payment.
Yeah.
So to go remove the risk for a year of the major appliances failing and having to come out of pocket on a bit, deductibles $85 type deal, but now all of a sudden the whole appliance is being replaced for $85. What a savings and peace of mind, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, you don't feel like you're going into a house, because you hear horror stories. We got into our house, our dishwasher broke, our washer broke, and our furnace went out, and then you're like, well,
I just put all my money into the down payment.
Yeah.
Like,
so you have
really?
people out there
How
with
am I
no
supposed
heat.
to do this?
Yeah.
Right? So and what that does is sets you up as a first-time buyer for success. So what we want to do is the first year is always the hardest. And so once we do that, we can set you up for success, make sure that we mitigate the risk. Again, this term of mitigating risk, but just the financial risk of you having an appliance fail. And you still got to be able to live. When you're a tenant, that's something that the landlord, you make a phone call to the landlord, they fix that. That's part of what you pay for with your money. Now that responsibility falls on you. Not insurmountable, but there are tools out there that we can do to make it successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sid, you brought up, and I want you to talk about it because I thought it was so great, but the payment, right?
Yeah.
Like oftentimes everyone's saying, oh man, the payments on a house so much, it's gonna overwhelm us. How do we handle it? I'm gonna stay a tenant because I'm afraid
Yeah.
of a bigger payment potentially, and what that implies to me. So you want to talk about you making your first payment?
Well, it was nice. We didn't have to make our first payment for at least 2 months once we moved in. So that was kind of nice at the beginning. But
And let me point out to you, when you close on the house, your payment isn't due for 30 to 45 days after closing.
Yeah.
So you have, where you're used to always paying rent as a tenant on the first,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden your payment's not going to be potentially due for a month or 2 months later, depending on when you close on your home. It may be after. So
yeah, which was nice because then right when we got into the home, we could use our last rent money for things to help fix
Yeah.
up the house and things like that. But yeah, we just made our first rent payment a couple weeks ago.
mortgage payment.
Our mortgage payment. Yeah, our
Yeah, I
mortgage
mean,
payment.
isn't that great?
Yeah, and we were joking that it was a lot, but we still have money left over. We're gonna be just fine.
Yep.
You're eating.
Yeah, we're eating. That's something. Not that it's just stressful going into it, knowing that your house payment is going to be a little bit more expensive. But it's if you figure out all the numbers before you buy the house, then you can make it work.
Right.
We
Well,
knew what we were going to be left
yeah.
with at the end of the
And
day.
now that you're making that mortgage payment, you're paying down principal on the loan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? So that principal reduction is like a forced savings account.
Yeah.
And then the benefit is when you file your taxes the next time, you're going to get the deduction for the interest on your mortgage. And that's, I think, the biggest thing for people moving from tenant to land to ownership. When you move from tenant to ownership, that is a benefit on your taxes you don't realize, which will give you more of a refund on your taxes. You always hear about these people that get these big tax returns and
Yeah.
I'm going to Mexico on a trip with the family on my tax return. That's how they do it.
Okay.
So you're going to be pleasantly surprised when that happens. And then the other thing that is kind of, we don't see really, but you will over the years, is that appreciation of the house, right? So that's something, so not only are you paying down the mortgage and the principal, but then your house, like fixing it up, right? Put new paint, put new flooring, cabinets, countertops. When you do that, increases the value of the home over what you originally purchased it for. You bought it in the right area. And so we know that this is an appreciating area, and you're going to be making money not only on the reduction, but then the appreciation of the house. So you're going to take a peek back in 5 years and say, wow, look how much we paid down on our mortgage.
Yeah.
And you're going to say, wow, on top of that, look how much it appreciated.
Yeah,
Whoa.
absolutely.
You know, and kind of making money while you're sleeping in a way, right?
Yeah. Well, and like going back to making the first payment, like she'll be the first one to admit I'm pretty frugal. But I would say like you make a rent payment and you do have that feeling, you're like, oh man. But then like when we made our payment, I'm like, cool. Like we're renting from ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not paying someone else's mortgage, which is like kind of a cool feeling,
Well,
you know?
and that's a good point. You're saying that owning a house is a stress reducer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Which is
yeah.
a funny
Yeah.
thing to say, because
Yeah.
everybody going in, when you first started,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you were like, oh my gosh, this is so stressful. Now that you're there, you're like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I sleep better at night.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, that's fun. That's great to hear. How do we find the area that works best for us, right? And there's a
Yeah.
lot that goes into that,
Yeah.
right? So you have commute times, right?
Yeah.
Like what I remember that was part of our conversations. We want to find an area that isn't too bad for us to commute to our jobs.
Yeah.
That you can afford,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Right? That you feel comfortable as far as having the infrastructure or the things that are important to you available in the community. Yeah, share
Yeah.
more. How did you even start the process?
Well, I think a big part of it is before we even started really getting into the process, we would look on like Realtor.com, Zillow, all the different apps and kind of figure out different areas. And I think at first we were like, oh, that's maybe out of our price range and things like that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until we met with you and with Graham that we realized, okay, we can then take what we liked from those areas and kind of find more places that would work for us.
Yeah. Super important
Yeah.
to make sure that you get with a good experienced lender in the beginning to identify what your price point is that you can
Yes.
afford.
Yeah.
And then from that standpoint, right? So we have that number.
Yeah.
Then we start looking in the areas that fit your price point, and then you start balancing the other aspects of like what's important, what's not,
Yeah.
right? Like
so that you don't just keep looking and getting disappointed when you think, oh,
Yeah.
that's going to be too much or whatever it may be. But then once we told you kind of the areas that we were thinking about and you put on that like refined search for us,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we were able to like go through and like really like weed different areas and different houses out and find the ones that we were interested in going to see.
Right.
So that was really helpful.
So, and that's a great point, right? So you want to make sure you have an experienced agent working with you to make sure that they know the area well enough to be able to guide you
Yeah.
to specific territory, areas, communities that are going to work within your budget and also the constraints you have for, lifestyle. Right,
Yeah.
both the employment and out. You got family and kids. It's important that I can go mountain biking or I'm going to the Rockies game.
Yep.
Right,
Yeah.
I need to be able to get there efficiently.
Yeah.
I have buyers at public transit. That I have to take the bus into Denver because there's no parking. Parking permits are so expensive for the month, so I just I commute on public transit. So I need to make sure that they are situated close to a public transit line, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all that stuff weighs into the situation,
Definitely.
and it is a little bit, but we were able to, with you using all the number of online applications,
Yeah.
to be able to weed out certain communities. This is too far. This is close. Housing stock, what you're willing to accept house-wise. Do I have to have a brand new house, or can I have one that I kind of customize and fix up?
Yeah.
Right? Wherever we find ourselves, and then we start looking at homes. So we spent several days
Yeah.
touring different homes, right? And
When we did go to like a new build place and kind of talk with them through that and seeing if that would be an option for us, but then ultimately like seeing all the other houses that had already been lived in and things like that were more
yeah, so
what we were looking for.
So resale homes versus new, and
Yeah.
that's a great point. Like there's a balance in there of, do I want that new home? There's certainly they're very nice, but they
Yeah.
tend to come with a little larger price tag, right?
Yeah. One, just being able to see the different places too and making sure that we did go to the newer places and the older places and just making sure then that our search was what we wanted it to.
Ask questions. There's no stupid question.
Yes.
Because I think the only stupid question is questioning to yourself if they're stupid questions, because there's not.
Yeah. Well, and I'd like answering them. Right?
Yeah.
Like so, I know it's hard to believe, but March or February 28th, it'll be 30 years I've been licensed.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, which is kind of a fun.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That is
And during that period, I've had a lot of opportunity within the industry in a number of different roles: lender, nonprofit housing developer, home sales, ownership of the brokerage, working for another brokerage, right? The whole thing. But those years of experience, I'm able to share with you and provide that guidance to make sure you're on the right path.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
You
know?
definitely felt like you
And be successful, right? Because this is
Yeah.
something 50 years from now you want to be successful, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if we start off and this, related back to the home purchase, right? We want to make sure we have a good building envelope. We want to make sure you have a good financial house of cards to begin with. That's the first of many coming in. And
Yep.
so it's going to be fun for me to watch as you evolve and grow. And, as we know, this won't be the last house.
Yeah.
Right? But this is a good first house,
Yep.
and you could keep it as a rental, potentially pull some of the equity out to buy your next house.
Yeah.
Right? Job relocations, potentially, all kinds of life things occur.
Yeah.
Maybe that house on the lake or in the mountains or wherever you want to be the next,
Yeah.
as everybody's life evolves, that it changes, and it's the
Yep.
fun part.
Yep.
So,
Definitely.
so with that, I want to say thank you for sharing your story with everyone and helping others through the process. I mean, hugely. And Sid here is a teacher, so she does this all the time in teaching others and future generations. So you're going to be able to help others here in the community, and thank you very much. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Doug, Real Simple Housing. Our contact information is in the description below. Feel free to reach out. Love to get you started. Look forward to talking to you the next time. Thanks very much, everyone.